Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Horizon's Edge, watching the stars through the main screen. His crew had been traveling for 3 months, mapping new star systems for the Earth Colonial Authority. It was routine work, but Jake never got tired of seeing new worlds. "Captain, we're getting something strange on long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. Her voice carried a note of concern that made Jake look up from his reports. "What kind of strange?" Jake asked, walking over to her console. Amy pointed at her screen. "Multiple ships, sir. Really big ones. They're not showing up in our database, and they're heading straight for us." Jake felt his heart rate increase. In over 200 years of space travel, humans had never met another intelligent species. They had found plenty of planets with life, but nothing that could build spaceships. "How many ships?" Jake asked. 12, sir. The largest one is about 5 times the size of our ship." Jake nodded slowly. This was the moment every space captain had trained for but hoped would never come. "Put the ship on yellow alert. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have possible first contact." 20 minutes later, the alien ships were close enough to see clearly. They were sleek and dark, with strange curves that no human engineer would design. Jake could see weapon ports along their hulls. More weapons than any exploration ship would need. "Captain, we're being scanned," Amy reported. "Their technology is definitely more advanced than ours." Before Jake could respond, his communications officer spoke up. "Sir, they're sending us a message. It's in perfect English." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Put it on screen." The main screen flickered, and suddenly Jake was looking at something that definitely wasn't human. The alien had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that seemed too large for its head. When it spoke, its voice was deep and commanding. "I am Admiral Zekthul of the HFY Empire. You will identify yourselves and state your intentions in this sector." Jake stepped forward, trying to look calm even though his hands were shaking slightly. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Horizon's Edge. We're explorers mapping new systems." Admiral Zekthul made a sound that might have been laughter. "Earth, we have not heard of this world." "No matter. I will make this simple for you, human. The HFY Empire claims this entire region of space. You have 2 choices. Surrender your ship and join our empire as vassals, or be destroyed." Jake felt the bridge go silent behind him. Every member of his crew was waiting to see what he would say. In training, they had discussed this possibility, but facing it in reality was different. "Admiral, I need to report this conversation to my government on Earth, but I have to give you a warning first." Jake paused, making sure he had the alien's attention. "Do not cross into Earth's solar system. We really don't want to hurt anyone." The alien admiral stared at Jake for a long moment, then began making that laughing sound again. "You warn me? A species with 4 small colonies warns the mighty HFY Empire." The laughter grew louder. "Human, we have conquered 847 star systems. We have absorbed 23 different species. Your little warning amuses me." "I'm serious, Admiral," Jake said quietly. "Stay away from Earth." Admiral Zekthul's expression changed, becoming more interested. "Tell me, human, how many ships does Earth have?" Jake thought carefully before answering. "I can't give you exact numbers, but we have enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to make you very sorry if you ignore my warning." The alien admiral leaned back in his chair. "I see. Very well, Captain Morrison. You may return to your Earth and deliver our ultimatum. You have 60 standard days to surrender unconditionally. If you do not, we will come to your home system and take it by force. This conversation is being broadcast across the galaxy, so all species will see what happens to those who refuse the Empire." The screen went dark. Jake stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. Humanity's first contact with aliens, and it was a threat of invasion. "Set course for Earth maximum speed," Jake ordered, "and send everything we recorded to Earth Command on a tight beam transmission." As the Horizon's Edge turned toward home, Amy looked up from her station. "Captain, do you really think Earth can fight them?" "They said they've conquered hundreds of worlds." Jake nodded slowly. "Amy, there's something you need to understand about Earth. We've been preparing for this day since we first left our solar system. The Colonial Authority isn't just about exploration. It's about making sure Earth is ready if we ever meet someone like Admiral Zekthul." "What do you mean?" "Think about human history," Jake said. "We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know war better than any species has a right to know it. And when humans fight together instead of against each other..." He paused, watching the stars stream by. "Well, let's just say the Admiral might be in for a surprise. 3 weeks later, Earth received Jake's message. In the presidential office, Maria Santos sat with her military advisors, watching the recording of the alien contact. General Pete Harrison, head of Earth Defense Command, rewound the message and played it again. "So they want us to surrender," President Santos said. "What are our options, General?" General Harrison smiled grimly. "Ma'am, they have no idea what they're walking into. The solar defense grid has been active for 50 years. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris between here and Jupiter has been weaponized or turned into a sensor platform." Dr. Lisa Carter, Earth's head of xenobiology, looked up from her notes. "The interesting thing is their psychology. Everything about that admiral suggests his species evolved as prey animals. They developed intelligence to hide and avoid conflict. That's why they're so surprised by Captain Morrison's warning." "What do you mean?" President Santos asked. "Humans evolved as hunters, ma'am. Persistence hunters. We're probably the only predator species in the galaxy that developed space travel. Most species either stayed too aggressive to cooperate or became too passive to expand beyond their homeworlds." General Harrison nodded. "Which means they have no idea how humans fight when we're defending our home." President Santos looked at both of them. "Are you telling me we can actually win this?" "Ma'am," General Harrison said, "they're bringing a conquest fleet to fight a defensive war against the species that invented the concept of total war. They warned us they've conquered 800 star systems. What they don't know is that we've spent 2 centuries turning our solar system into the largest fortress in galactic history." Dr. Carter added, "And psychologically, they've made a crucial mistake. They threatened our home. There's nothing more dangerous than a human protecting their family." President Santos nodded slowly. "Then we prepare for war. But first we try one more time to warn them off. Send a message to this Admiral Zechthul. Tell him Earth's answer is no. We will not surrender. And remind him one more time to stay away from our solar system." The message was sent, but nobody expected it to change anything. Admiral Zechthul had made his decision, and the Kethvar Empire was coming to Earth. What they would find there would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Admiral Zechthul stood in the command center of his flagship, the Dominator, watching the tactical display show his fleet's approach to the human solar system. 300 ships of the 7th Conquest Fleet moved through space in perfect formation. It was the largest fleet the Kethvar Empire had assembled in 50 years. "Admiral, we are approaching the outer edge of the human star system," reported his tactical officer. "No sign of defensive fleets. Long-range scans show only small settlements on 3 worlds, and some mining operations in the asteroid region." Zechthul nodded with satisfaction. The humans had clearly seen the wisdom of surrender. Most species did when faced with the full might of the Empire. Still, he would follow protocol. "Open a communication channel to the 3rd planet. I will deliver the final ultimatum." The communication officer worked at his console for a moment. "Channel open, Admiral." Zechthul straightened his uniform and faced the recorder. "Humans of Earth, this is Admiral Zechthul of the Kethvar Empire. My fleet of 300 warships now stands at the edge of your system. You have 24 hours to surrender unconditionally. Prepare your leaders for transport to my flagship, where they will sign the Articles of Incorporation into the Empire. Failure to comply will result in orbital bombardment of your cities and the complete destruction of your civilization." He gestured for the officer to close the channel. "Begin standard pre-bombardment scans of their major population centers. I want targeting data ready if they refuse to surrender." On Earth, President Maria Santos sat in the Emergency Command Center, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around the table sat General Pete Harrison, Dr. Lisa Carter, and the heads of every major military branch. The alien ultimatum played on the main screen. 24 hours, General Harrison said. "That's actually perfect timing." "Perfect for what?" asked Admiral Robert Taylor of the Space Navy. "For the final positioning of our mobile assets," Harrison replied. "The fixed defenses have been ready for weeks, but we needed time to get our ship fleets into position." President Santos looked around the table. "I need to know our real chances here. Can we actually stop 300 alien warships?" Dr. Carter consulted her tablet. "Based on the scans Captain Morrison's ship made, their technology is more advanced than ours in some areas, but not as much as they think. Their ships are large and heavily armed, but they're designed for attacking planets, not for ship-to-ship combat in a defended system." General Harrison activated a holographic display of the solar system. Red dots showed the position of the alien fleet just outside Pluto's orbit. Blue dots filled the space between the aliens and Earth, thousands of them. What are all those blue dots? President Santos asked. Every single defensive platform, weapon system, and military vessel in our solar system, Harrison explained. We've had 150 years to prepare for this moment. Every asteroid bigger than a house has been hollowed out and fitted with weapons. Every moon has underground bases. The ice rings around the gas giants are full of automated defense drones. Admiral Taylor pointed to clusters of blue dots. The mobile fleets are already in position. Alpha Fleet is hiding in Saturn's rings. Beta Fleet is drifting cold behind Jupiter. Gamma Fleet is dispersed throughout the asteroid belt. When the shooting starts, the aliens will find themselves surrounded. Dr. Carter added, the psychological warfare protocols are ready as well. The moment they enter our system, we start broadcasting directly into their communication networks. What kind of broadcasts? President Santos asked. Everything that makes humans human, Dr. Carter smiled grimly. War movies, horror films, historical documentaries about our bloodiest battles. These are prey animals, ma'am. They've never seen a species that creates entertainment about violence. It should be quite effective. General Harrison looked at his watch. 22 hours until their deadline. I recommend we use that time to make one final attempt at peaceful resolution. President Santos nodded. Draft a response. Tell them Earth's answer is no. We will not surrender. And warn them one more time to leave our system while they still can. And if they refuse, Admiral Taylor asked, then we show them why humans have never lost a defensive war on our home territory. 18 hours later, Admiral Zekthul received Earth's response. He read it twice, unable to believe what he was seeing. They refuse, he told his bridge crew. Not only do they refuse to surrender, they are still warning us to leave. He laughed, but it sounded forced. Incredible arrogance from such a primitive species. His tactical officer looked up from his console. Admiral, our deep scans of their system are showing some unusual readings. There appear to be far more artificial objects in space than we initially detected. Explain. We originally detected mining operations in the asteroid belt and small outposts on various moons. But more detailed scans suggest these operations are much larger than typical for a species at their development level. Some of the asteroids show signs of extensive modification. Zekthul frowned. Are you suggesting they have hidden military installations? It's possible, sir. Also, we're detecting unusual electromagnetic signatures throughout the system. Almost like there are ships running on minimal power. For the first time since entering the human system, Zekthul felt a small touch of unease. How many ships could they be hiding? Unknown, sir. If they're running cold and using electromagnetic shielding, our sensors might not detect them until they power up. Zekthul considered this information. The human captain had warned him twice. No species had ever warned the Kethvar Empire before. They begged, they surrendered, they tried to negotiate, but they never warned. Admiral, his communication officer interrupted. The humans are sending another transmission. Put it on screen. This time, instead of President Santos or Captain Morrison, a different human appeared. He wore a military uniform and had the bearing of a career soldier. I am General Pete Harrison, Commander of Earth Defense Forces. Admiral Zekthul, I want to be very clear about something. We have tried 3 times to warn you away from our system. We don't want to fight you. We don't want to destroy your fleet. We want you to leave, go back to your empire, and pretend this never happened. The general paused, and his expression grew harder. But if you choose to attack Earth, you need to understand what you're facing. Humans have been fighting wars for 5,000 years. We have turned warfare into an art form. We have weapons you can't imagine and tactics your species has never encountered. This is your final warning. Leave now or face the consequences. The transmission ended. Admiral Zekthul stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Sir? His tactical officer asked. Your orders? Zekthul straightened up. He was an admiral of the Kethvar Empire. He had conquered 12 star systems personally. He would not be intimidated by a species that had never even fought another spacefaring civilization. All ships, prepare for assault formation. Target their major cities for orbital bombardment. We will teach these humans the price of defying the Empire. Yes, sir. All ships reporting ready. Shall I give the order to advance? Admiral Zekthul looked at the tactical display one more time. 300 Kethvar warships against a primitive human civilization. The outcome was certain. Advance into the system. Begin the conquest of Earth. As the alien fleet crossed the orbit of Pluto, thousands of automated sensors throughout the solar system came online. On Earth, in the command center, General Harrison watched the tactical display update in real time. "They're coming," he announced. "All stations, this is General Harrison. Execute Operation Solar Shield. All units, weapons free. Let's show these aliens why nobody attacks Earth." The trap was set. The Keith of our empire was about to learn that some warnings should be taken seriously. Admiral Zekthul watched his fleet advance deeper into the human solar system. Everything appeared normal. A few mining stations in the asteroid belt. Some small colonies on the outer planets, nothing that suggested a military threat. Perhaps the humans had been bluffing after all. "Admiral, we are now passing the orbit of the gas giant they call Jupiter," his tactical officer reported. "Still no sign of organized resistance." "Maintain formation," Zekthul ordered. "Begin charging primary weapons. I want to be ready for orbital bombardment as soon as we reach their homeworld." What Admiral Zekthul didn't know was that he had just triggered the largest military trap in galactic history. Hidden throughout the solar system, thousands of human military assets began powering up simultaneously. The asteroid belt, which the aliens had dismissed as simple mining operations, revealed its true nature. What looked like hollowed-out rocks were actually massive weapon platforms, each one armed with particle beam cannons powerful enough to cut through starship armor. Commander Rick Stevens sat in the primary control center for Asteroid Defense Platform Alpha 7, the largest of the hidden fortresses. Around him, dozens of technicians brought weapon systems online. "All platforms reporting ready, Commander," his weapons officer announced. "We have firing solutions on the entire alien fleet." "Hold position," Rick ordered. "Wait for the general's signal." On Earth, General Harrison watched the tactical display as the alien fleet moved deeper into the trap. "Phase 1 initiate," he commanded. Suddenly, space around the Kethvar fleet came alive. Thousands of objects that had been drifting cold and dark powered up their engines and weapons. From behind Jupiter emerged Alpha Fleet, 60 heavy cruisers that had been hiding in the gas giant's radiation shadow. From Saturn's rings came Beta Fleet, 40 fast attack ships that had been disguised as ice chunks. But the real surprise came from the asteroid belt itself. Over 2,000 weapon platforms revealed themselves, surrounding the alien fleet in a sphere of concentrated firepower. "What is this?" Admiral Zekthul demanded, staring at his tactical display as red warning lights filled his screen. "Where did all these ships come from?" His tactical officer was frantically working at his console. "Sir, we're surrounded. I count over 3,000 human military vessels and weapon platforms." "How is this possible?" Before Zekthul could respond, his communication system activated without his permission. The voice of General Harrison filled the bridge of every ship in the alien fleet. "Admiral Zekthul, this is General Harrison. You are now completely surrounded by the solar defense grid. This is your final chance to surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded," Zekthul snarled. "Never. All ships open fire. Destroy everything in range." The battle began with the Kethvar fleet firing in all directions, trying to break through the human formations. Their weapons were powerful, and several human ships took heavy damage. But the aliens quickly discovered they had made a terrible mistake. Lieutenant Commander Amy Rodriguez led Stealth Squadron 7 out of Saturn's rings, her 12 fighters moving faster than anything in the Kethvar fleet. Her ships darted between the massive alien vessels, targeting their weapon systems with precision strikes. "Target their communication arrays first," Amy ordered her pilots. "Cut them off from each other." The human fighters were small and fast, almost impossible for the large alien guns to track. Within minutes, half the Kethvar fleet had lost their ability to coordinate with each other. Meanwhile, Commander Stevens gave the order his people had been waiting for. "All asteroid platforms, open fire." 2,000 particle beam cannons fired simultaneously. The space around the alien fleet lit up like a star, as concentrated energy beams sliced through ship after ship. The Kethvar vessels, designed for bombarding helpless planets, had never been built to withstand this kind of focused assault. But General Harrison wasn't done. "Dr. Carter, initiate the psychological warfare protocol." On every alien ship, the communication system suddenly filled with broadcasts from Earth. But these weren't diplomatic messages or surrender demands. They were clips from human movies, documentaries, and historical records. Images of human soldiers fighting impossible odds. Scenes from horror movies that showed humans as monsters. Audio from the bloodiest battles in human history. The effect on the Kethvar crews was immediate and devastating. As a prey species, they had never encountered another race that celebrated violence, that turned warfare into entertainment, that seemed to enjoy fighting itself. On the bridge of the Dominator, Admiral Zekthul watched his fleet being systematically destroyed while alien sounds of human laughter and screaming filled his ears. His crew was beginning to panic, something that had never happened in the history of the Kethvar Empire. "Sir, we've lost 60 ships," his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. "The humans are not following any known tactical doctrine. They're fighting like they enjoy it." Zekthul looked at his display. The humans weren't just winning, they were toying with his fleet. Their fighters would disable a ship's weapons, then move on to the next target instead of finishing it off. Their larger ships were herding damaged Kethvar vessels into capture zones rather than destroying them outright. "They're not trying to kill us all," he realized. "They're trying to capture us." This was worse than destruction. In Kethvar culture, being taken alive by an enemy was the ultimate shame. But more than that, it meant the humans were so confident in their victory that they could afford to take prisoners. A new voice came over the communication system. This time it was Captain Jake Morrison, speaking from the human command ship Terra's Shield. "Admiral Zekthul, I'm the one who warned you not to come here. Your fleet is broken. 200 of your ships are already disabled or destroyed. You can surrender now and save the lives of your remaining crews, or we can finish this. But either way, this battle is over." Zekthul looked around his bridge. Half his crew was staring at the screen showing human warriors, their faces pale with fear. His ship was surrounded by human vessels, their weapons trained on his bridge. "Sir," his communication officer whispered. "Incoming transmission from the homeworld. Emperor Vextar wants a status report." Zekthul closed his eyes. How could he tell the Emperor that the mighty 7th Conquest Fleet had been defeated by a species they had never even heard of 6 months ago? "Admiral," his tactical officer shouted. "Massive energy buildup from the human weapon platforms. I think they're preparing to fire again." Through his view screen, Zekthul could see the asteroid belt glowing with power. Thousands of human weapons were aimed at what remained of his fleet. He thought about the 300 ships he had brought to conquer Earth. Only 40 were still capable of fighting. "All ships," he said quietly. "Stand down. Power down all weapons." The bridge fell silent. In the history of the Kethvar Empire, no admiral had ever surrendered an entire conquest fleet. Captain Morrison's voice came through the speakers again, but this time it was gentler. "Admiral, I told you we didn't want to hurt anyone. Have your ships move to the coordinates we're sending you. Our medical teams will help your wounded, and we'll begin discussing terms for the return of your personnel." As the surviving Kethvar ships limped toward the human assembly points, Admiral Zekthul sat in his command chair and tried to understand what had just happened. The humans hadn't just defeated his fleet, they had made it look easy. Worse, they had done it while treating it almost like a game. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "how do we report this to the Emperor?" Zekthul thought about that question. How do you tell your leader that you encountered a species that treats warfare like entertainment? How do you explain that they turned their entire solar system into a weapon? How do you describe fighters that laugh while they're destroying your ships? "I don't know," he admitted. "I honestly don't know." On Earth, General Harrison watched the last alien ship surrender. The Battle of Sol was over. Humanity had won its first interstellar war, and they had done it without losing a single major vessel. "Casualties?" he asked his aide. 17 fighters lost, sir. 43 wounded, 8 dead. The aliens lost 260 ships. Harrison nodded grimly. "And now comes the hard part. We have to decide what to do with 300,000 alien prisoners and a galactic empire that's going to want revenge." Dr. Carter looked up from her console. "General, we're receiving communication attempts from dozens of different star systems. Word of our victory is spreading fast. What are they saying? Most of them want to know if the humans are accepting new allies." General Harrison smiled for the first time since the battle began. "I guess our warning to the galaxy just became something bigger. We're not just defending Earth anymore. We're making a statement that bullies don't always win. The war was over, but the real consequences were just beginning." Emperor Vextar stood in the great throne room of the Kethvar capital world, staring at the holographic display that showed the remains of his 7th Conquest Fleet. 40 ships out of 300 had limped back to Kethvar space, their crews broken and terrified. Admiral Zekthul himself was being held prisoner by the humans. Impossible, he said for the 10th time. A species with 4 worlds cannot defeat the Empire. His military advisor, General Krixvoll, shifted uncomfortably. My Emperor, the survivors all tell the same story. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. They were waiting for us. Then we send a larger fleet, Vextar snarled. 5,000 ships. 10,000 if necessary. These humans must be destroyed before word of this defeat spreads any further. Sir, another advisor interrupted. It may be too late for that. The news has already reached every major civilization in the galaxy. The Orcs Confederation has sent a diplomatic mission to Earth. The Mentari Assembly is requesting permission to study human military tactics. Emperor Vextar felt his rage building. The Kethvar Empire had ruled through fear for over 1,000 years. If other species began to believe the Empire could be defeated, rebellions would break out across hundreds of worlds. And our vassal species? He asked quietly. General Krixvoll consulted his tablet. 17 systems have stopped sending tribute. The Zephyrians have declared independence. The Korax colonies are in open revolt. The Emperor closed his eyes. One defeat and his empire was beginning to crumble. He opened his eyes and straightened up. Prepare the Grand Fleet. I will personally lead the attack on Earth. We will bring every ship in the Empire if necessary. My Emperor, his chief advisor said carefully, perhaps we should attempt diplomacy first. The humans have indicated they are willing to negotiate. Negotiate? Vextar's voice rose to a roar. The Kethvar Empire does not negotiate with primitive species. We conquer or we destroy. There is no third option. But even as he spoke, Vextar knew the situation was more complicated than he wanted to admit. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had done something no other species had ever managed. They had made the Empire look weak. 3 weeks later, on the neutral trading station Kepler's Rest, Captain Jake Morrison sat across a conference table from the highest-ranking Kethvar officials, willing to meet with humans. Admiral Zekthul, recently released as a gesture of good faith, sat at the far end of the table looking deeply uncomfortable. With Morrison was Earth's new diplomatic envoy, Helen Brooks, a career diplomat who had spent the last month studying everything humanity had learned about Kethvar culture. We appreciate you agreeing to this meeting, Helen began. Earth has no desire for continued conflict with the Kethvar Empire. General Krixvoll, speaking for the Emperor, looked skeptical. Your actions suggest otherwise. You destroyed our fleet and took our personnel prisoner. We defended our home system, Morrison replied calmly. Your fleet came to conquer Earth. We warned you multiple times not to attack us. You cannot expect the Empire to simply accept this humiliation, Krixvoll said. Our Emperor is already assembling a force 10 times larger than the fleet you defeated. Helen leaned forward. General, before your Emperor commits to that course of action, there are some things about humanity he needs to understand. She activated a holographic projector in the center of the table. Images began to appear, showing scenes from Earth's history. Armies clashing on ancient battlefields, cities burning during wars that lasted for decades, massive battles fought with weapons that could destroy entire continents. What you're looking at is 5,000 years of human warfare, Helen explained. We have fought each other continuously throughout our entire recorded history. We have weapons that can destroy planets, and we've actually built enough of them to destroy our own world dozens of times over. Admiral Zekthul spoke for the first time. Why are you showing us this? Because, Morrison said, you need to understand what kind of species you're threatening. Every human ship is equipped with what we call the Samson Protocol. If Earth is ever completely conquered, if our government falls and our people are enslaved, those ships will not stop fighting. They will pursue your fleets back to your homeworld and destroy everything you've built. Helen changed the display to show technical specifications for human weapons. This is a planet-killer missile. We have 12,000 of them. This is an antimatter bomb that can destroy a star system. We have 300 of those. And this? She paused as the display showed a schematic of a massive ship. Is our doomsday vessel. It carries enough firepower to sterilize every world in the Kethvar Empire. General Krixvoll stared at the specifications. You would destroy yourselves to defeat us. If necessary, Morrison said simply. It's a human concept called mutually assured destruction. If you destroy us, we destroy you. Everyone dies and nobody wins. But that's insane, Admiral Zekthul protested. No rational species would risk total extinction. Helen smiled grimly. General Admiral, you need to understand something fundamental about humans. We are not a rational species when it comes to defending our homes and families. We are persistence hunters. We never give up, we never stop, and we never forget. If you force us into a war of extermination, we will fight until there are no humans left in the universe. And we will take you with us. The room fell silent. Finally, General Crixville spoke. What are you proposing? Simple, Helen said. The Empire withdraws from human space permanently. You never again send military forces into our systems. In exchange, humanity will remain within our current borders. We have no interest in conquering your territory. And if we refuse? Morrison leaned back in his chair. Then you'd better hope that 10,000 ship fleet of yours is enough. Because if it isn't, the next human fleet that visits Kethvar space won't be coming to defend. They'll be coming to end this permanently. Admiral Zekthul looked at his colleague. General, I was there when they destroyed our fleet. I saw how they fight. They're not like other species. They enjoy warfare. They turn it into entertainment. They train their children with games about combat. The Admiral is right, Helen added. Most species in the galaxy evolved as prey animals. You developed intelligence to hide from predators to avoid conflict. Humans are different. We evolved as predators ourselves. We're the only known species that developed space travel while remaining apex predators on their homeworld. She changed the display again, showing human athletic competitions. We compete constantly, even in peacetime. We create contests to see who can fight better, run faster, think more strategically. Your species plays games to relax. Humans play games to prepare for war. General Crixville studied the images of human soldiers, athletes, and strategists. What you're describing sounds like a species of madmen. Maybe, Morrison admitted. But we're madmen who just defeated your best fleet without breaking a sweat. The question is, does your Emperor want to find out what happens when we stop being polite? The meeting continued for 6 more hours, but the essential message had been delivered. Humanity was offering the Keth of our empire a choice: peace within defined borders, or total war with a species that had spent 5,000 years perfecting the art of violence. When the delegation returned to the Empire's capital, Emperor Vextar listened to their report in growing disbelief. They threatened to destroy our entire civilization? He asked. Yes, my Emperor, General Crixville replied, and based on what I saw of their technology and their mindset, I believe they have the capability to carry out that threat. Vextar stood and walked to the great window that looked out over his capital city. Millions of Kethvar citizens went about their daily lives below, unaware that their entire civilization might be at risk. How did we not know about this species? He asked quietly. They were deliberately hiding their true capabilities, Admiral Zekthul explained. Their exploration ships, their colonies, even their diplomatic messages were all designed to make them appear primitive and peaceful. It was all misdirection. The Emperor turned back to his advisors. And you believe they will actually carry out this mutual destruction? General Crixville nodded. My Emperor, I studied their historical records during the negotiations. They have a saying, better to die on your feet than live on your knees. This is a species that has repeatedly chosen death before surrender throughout their entire history. Emperor Vextar sat back down on his throne, feeling older than his 800 years. The Kethvar Empire had never faced an enemy like this before. Every previous conquest had followed the same pattern: overwhelm the enemy with superior numbers, accept their surrender, incorporate their worlds into the empire. But the humans had changed the rules. They weren't interested in being conquered or in conquering others. They simply wanted to be left alone, and they were prepared to destroy everything rather than accept subjugation. What do you recommend? He asked his advisors. Accept their terms, General Crixville said immediately. Withdraw from human space. Establish the boundaries they suggested and hope they keep their word about staying within their own territory. Emperor Vextar considered this. It would be the first time in Kethvar history that the Empire had negotiated with an enemy as equals. It would be seen as a sign of weakness across the galaxy. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the flagship Earthguard, watching a convoy of refugee ships approach through space. The vessels were battered and overcrowded, carrying Mentari families fleeing from Kethvar retaliation raids in the outer territories. Admiral, the refugee convoy is requesting permission to dock at Haven Station, reported his first officer, Commander Amy Rodriguez. That's 43 ships carrying approximately 200,000 civilians. Jake nodded. Grant permission. And send word to the colonial authority that we'll need housing and supplies for another wave of refugees. It had become a familiar routine. As word of humanity's victory over the Kethvar Empire spread across the galaxy, smaller species began reaching out for protection. The once mighty empire was slowly crumbling as vassal worlds declared independence, and the Kethvar military was striking back with increasing desperation. Sir, Amy continued, we're also receiving 12 new requests for assistance. The Corax colonies want help defending against Kethvar punishment raids. The Zephyrian home system is requesting a human military advisor, and the Orcs Confederation is offering to share their medical technology in exchange for protection against empire expansion. Jake sighed. Add them to the list. How many requests are we up to now? 87 active requests for assistance, sir. Everything from refugee transport to military training to direct protection. On Earth, President Maria Santos sat in her office reading similar reports. The victory that was supposed to end human involvement in Galactic politics had instead made Earth the center of a growing coalition of species that opposed Imperial expansion. Dr. Lisa Carter knocked on her door and entered carrying a thick folder. Ma'am, I have the latest analysis of the Galactic situation. Please tell me it's getting simpler, President Santos said hopefully. I'm afraid not. The Kethvar Empire is fragmenting, but Emperor Vextar is refusing to accept it. He's pulling military forces back from the outer territories and consolidating around their core worlds. But that's leaving dozens of smaller species exposed to raids and attacks from Imperial loyalists. Dr. Carter opened her folder and showed the President a galactic map. Red areas showed regions still under Kethvar control. Blue areas showed independent worlds. And green areas showed systems that had requested human protection. The problem is, Dr. Carter continued, we've accidentally created a power vacuum. The Empire kept smaller species suppressed, but they also maintained order. With that order breaking down, we're seeing conflicts that have been brewing for centuries. President Santos studied the map. So our choice is to either let these species fight it out among themselves or get involved in every border dispute and civil war in the galaxy. That's essentially correct, ma'am. Although there is a third option, which is we establish what General Harrison is calling the Guardian Protocol. Instead of trying to control territory like the Empire did, we become galactic peacekeepers. We protect smaller species from larger aggressors, help mediate disputes, and maintain enough military presence to deter future Imperial expansion. President Santos leaned back in her chair. In other words, we become the galaxy's police force. More like the galaxy's military protection service, Dr. Carter corrected. We don't govern anyone, we don't claim territory, and we don't impose our culture on others. We simply make sure that might doesn't automatically make right. Meanwhile, on the Kethvar homeworld, Emperor Vextar faced the worst crisis in his empire's history. In the throne room, he met with what remained of his government as reports continued to pour in about lost territories and failed campaigns. Status. Report, he demanded. General Krixvoll consulted his datapad with obvious reluctance. We've lost 312 systems in the past 6 months. Most declared independence and requested human protection. Others simply stopped communicating with Imperial command. And our military response? Limited, my Emperor. Every time we send a punishment raid against rebel systems, human ships appear and drive our forces away. They're not conquering our territory, but they're making it impossible for us to maintain control over rebellious worlds. Emperor Vextar slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. How many human ships are there? They started with 4 small colonies. How can they be everywhere at once? Our intelligence suggests they've been building ships continuously for over a century, Admiral Zekthul reported. They were preparing for galactic war long before we ever made contact. Current estimates suggest they have over 10,000 military vessels of various sizes. The Emperor stared at him. 10,000 ships from 4 colonies? Their industrial capacity is unlike anything we've encountered, Admiral Zekthul explained. They don't just build ships on planets. They've turned asteroids, moons, and space stations into shipyards. Their entire civilization is militarized in a way that no other species has ever attempted. General Krixvoll added, we're also seeing technological improvements in their fleet. Intelligence reports suggest they're adapting Kethvar, technology captured during the Battle of Sol, and combining it with their own innovations. Emperor. Vextar stood and walked to the great window overlooking his capital. The city below looked the same as it had for centuries, but he knew that the empire beyond was dissolving. "What do our analysts believe the humans want?" he asked. "That's the disturbing part," General Crixville replied. "They don't seem to want anything except to be left alone and to protect others from imperial expansion. They're not claiming territory, they're not demanding tribute, and they're not trying to spread their culture. They simply stop us from conquering anyone else." "And their long-term goals?" Admiral Zekthul spoke up. "Based on intercepted communications, they appear to be establishing what they call a Galactic defense network. Independent species can request protection in exchange for providing bases and resources to human military forces." The Emperor turned back to his advisors. "So they're building their own empire?" "No, sir," Admiral Zekthul said. "That's what makes them so dangerous. They're not building an empire at all. They're building an alliance. The difference is that species join voluntarily and can leave at any time. It's making them far more popular than imperial rule ever was." Emperor Vexitar sat back down heavily. "And there's no way to defeat this alliance?" "Not with military force," General Crixville admitted. "The humans have turned their entire society into a military machine, and now they're helping other species do the same thing. Even if we could defeat their fleet, which is doubtful, we'd then have to fight every species they've been protecting." "What about diplomacy?" "They've made their terms clear. Complete withdrawal from all disputed territories, recognition of independence for all rebel systems, and a formal treaty guaranteeing no future imperial expansion. In exchange, they'll withdraw human forces from Kethvar space and establish formal diplomatic relations." The Emperor was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "And if we refuse? Then we continue to lose territory until the Empire consists of only our core worlds," Admiral Zekthul said. "The humans are patient. They're not trying to destroy us quickly. They're just making it impossible for us to expand or maintain control over unwilling subjects. They're dismantling the Empire piece by piece," General Crixville added, "and there's nothing we can do to stop it except accept their terms." Emperor Vextar closed his eyes. The mighty Kethvar Empire, which had ruled 800 worlds for 1,000 years, was being brought down by a species that claimed they just wanted to protect their neighbors. "Send a message to Earth," he said finally. "Tell them the Empire accepts their terms. We will withdraw to our core systems and sign their non-aggression treaty." "My Emperor," General Crixville said carefully, "this decision will end the Empire as we know it." "The Empire ended the day we attacked Earth," Vextar replied bitterly. "I'm just finally admitting it." 2 months later, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on Haven Station watching the formal signing of the Galactic Defense Accord. Representatives from 47 different species had gathered to establish the new organization that would maintain peace among the stars. Commander Amy Rodriguez joined him at the observation deck. "It's hard to believe it all started with Captain Morrison's exploration mission," she said. Jake smiled. "You know, when I gave Admiral Zekthul that first warning, I never imagined it would lead to this. Do you think it will work? This whole Guardian thing?" Jake watched as human, Mentari, Arix, and a dozen other species worked together to finalize the accords. "Amy, for 5,000 years humans have been fighting each other. We've gotten very good at war, but we've never been very good at peace. Maybe it's time we learned. And if the Kethvar change their minds? If Emperor Vextar decides to try again?" Jake pointed to the tactical display showing the defensive positions throughout the galaxy. Human ships patrolled trade routes, protected refugee convoys, and maintained watch over former imperial territories. "Then we'll remind them why they agreed to our terms in the first place," he said. "The difference is, now we won't be fighting alone." On the main deck below, President Santos was delivering the closing speech of the conference. "Today we establish a new principle in galactic relations," she announced. "That might does not make right. That every